I am muted. I apologize.
No worries. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Let me pop this out so my chat can see you too. So yeah, we're gonna watch the address. What are you watching it on right now?
I'm watching on YouTube. I'm waiting for it to. The stream started, but I'm waiting for the video to start.
Okay, awesome.
Oh, the president's entering.
Oh, never mind. Okay, we'll talk about this in a minute.
Fake president, the Marxist president installed by the deep state. Could you imagine right now being a QAnon supporter who thinks Trump's gonna come back, thinking any day now, while literally watching Joe Biden give an address to Congress?
No kidding, no kidding. Have you ever been in the chamber? Do you know how short that little walkway is?
I didn't.
Like,
I've never been there.
It's tiny. It's tiny. The presidents walk so slow, like one tiny foot in front of the other.
You gotta shake every hand, yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. Like, when I actually went in there, it was like, what? This is the big hallway that it takes forever to cross?
Oh boy, here we go.
Congress, I have the high privilege and distinct honor to present to you the President of the United States.
Ooh. The malarkey mauler, Joe Biden.
It's all malarkey.
Thank you. Good to be back.
Let's see if he talks about trans rights. I'm interested. I want to see if he says it.
Mitch and Chuck will understand it's good to be almost home. Down the hall. Anyway, thank you all. Madam Speaker, Madam Vice President. No president has ever said those words from this podium. No president has ever said those words. And it's about time.
Very uncommon for the president to come to joint session of Congress outside of, like, the State of the Union.
Yeah, I like the initiative, though.
Me too.
First Lady, I'm her husband.
This is like some Huey Long stuff. I love it.
Yeah.
Second Gentleman, Chief Justice.
It's gonna finally open up the FEMA camps.
Congress and the Cabinet, distinguished guests, my fellow Americans. While the setting tonight is familiar, this gathering is just a little bit different. A reminder of the extraordinary times we're in. Throughout our history, presidents have come to this chamber to speak to Congress, to the nation, and to the world, to declare war, to celebrate peace, to announce new plans and possibilities. Tonight, I come to talk about crisis and opportunity, about rebuilding the nation, revitalizing our democracy, and winning the future for America. I stand here tonight, one day shy of the 100th day of my administration. 100 days since I took the oath of office and lifted my hand off our family Bible and inherited a nation, we all did, that was in crisis. The worst pandemic in a century, the worst economic crisis since the Great Depression, the worst attack on our democracy since the Civil War. Now, after just 100 days, I can report to the nation, America is on the move again.
It's so weird seeing so few people in there.
I know. I was about to say the
Turning
same thing.
peril into
It's crazy.
possibility, crisis to opportunity, setbacks into strength. We all
Can't
know
wait Tim Pool to use this to make another
life
video
can
about the
knock us
Great
down.
Reset.
But in America, we never, ever, ever stay down. Americans always get up. Today, that's what we're doing. America's rising anew, choosing hope over fear, truth over lies, and light over darkness. After 100 days of rescue and renewal, America is ready for a takeoff, in my view. We're working again, dreaming again, discovering again, and leading the world again. We have shown each other and the world that there's no quit in America, none. 100 days ago, America's house was on fire. We had to act. And thanks to the extraordinary leadership of Speaker Pelosi, Majority Leader Schumer, and the overwhelming support of the American people, Democrats, Independents, and Republicans, we did act. Together, we passed the American Rescue Plan, one of the most consequential rescue packages in American history.
Oh, look at the thing at the bottom. The American Rescue Plan benefited more than 85% of Americans. Ooh, those little infographics. I love that. Oh, that's so smart. That's so smart.
Yeah.
Oh, there's more.
After I promised we'd get
When he entered offers, only 5% had a shot.
vaccine
Today, over
shots
54%. Oh my
in
gosh.
100 days.
Yeah.
We will have provided over 220 million COVID shots in those 100 days. Thanks to all the
Starting
help
with
of
the
all
strong
of you.
points. Smart. People will tune out like midway.
We're marshaling, with your help, everyone's help, we're marshaling every federal resource. We've gotten vaccines to nearly 40,000 pharmacies and over 700 community health centers where the poorest of the poor can be reached. We're setting up community vaccination sites, developing mobile units to get to hard-to-reach communities. Today, 90% of Americans now live within 5 miles of a vaccination site. Everyone over the age of 16, everyone is now eligible to get vaccinated right now, right away.
Which is a
Go
huge
get
deal.
vaccinated,
It's actually really
America.
smart for him to use this
Go
as an
and get
opportunity
the
to tell everyone, hey,
vaccination.
like you can do it
They're
right now.
available.
Yeah, go get it.
Yeah.
You're eligible now. When I was sworn in on January 20th, less than 1% of the seniors in America were fully vaccinated against COVID-19. 100 days later, 70% of seniors in America over 65 are protected, fully protected. Senior deaths from COVID-19 are down 80% since January, down 80% because of all of you. And more than half of all the adults in America have gotten at least one shot. A mass vaccination center in Glendale, Arizona, I asked the nurse, I said, "What's it like?" She looked at me and she said, "It's like every shot is giving a dose of hope," was her phrase, a dose of hope. A dose of hope for an educator in Florida who has a child suffering from an autoimmune disease. Wrote to me, said she was worried about bringing the virus home. She said she then got vaccinated at a large site in her car. She said she sat in her car when she got vaccinated and just cried out of joy and cried out of relief. Parents, seeing the smiles on their kids' faces for those who are able to go back to school because the teachers and school bus drivers and cafeteria workers have been vaccinated. Grandparents,
Biden literally prescribing
instead
hopium.
of pressing hands against the window.
Yeah. Well, that's all that's what he was
goodbye.
supposed to do. That was what he ran on.
Means everything. Those things mean
He
everything.
wanted to run on normalcy. He wanted to
there's
run on
still-
everything's going to be
You all
fine.
know it.
He's delivering on
Built
that
up in any
promise.
group of
Yeah, he
Americans.
has.
There's still more work to do to beat this virus. We can't let our guard down. But tonight, I can say, because of you, the American people, our progress these past 100 days against one of the worst pandemics in history has been one of the greatest logistical achievements.
Hopium doctrine.
Logistical achievements this country's ever seen.
The hopium doctrine. I like that.
What else have we done in those first 100 days?
But we do need it, though.
kept
I
our
will give it
commitment.
that.
Oh, yeah.
Democrats and Republicans, of sending $1,400 rescue checks to 85% of American households. We've already sent more than 160 million checks out the door. It's making a difference. You'll know it when you go home. For many people, it's making all the difference in the world. The single mom in Texas who wrote me, she said she couldn't work, but she said the relief check put food on the table and saved her and her son from eviction from their apartment. A grandmother in Virginia who told me she
Wonder if he's going to announce any new
took her
policies.
granddaughter to the eye doctor.
I wonder.
Something she said
He might
she
talk
put
about
off for
Iraq.
months
I mean,
because she didn't have the
Afghanistan.
money.
Oh, yeah. There's no way he's not
One
going
of
to
the
do a
defining
victory lap there. Of
images,
some
at
sort.
Oh,
least from
yeah,
my
for
perspective
sure.
in this crisis has been cars lined up.
And he's
Cars
definitely probably
lined
going to
up
talk
for
about the
miles.
infrastructure plan, most
Oh,
likely.
yeah.
And
The
not,
Jobs Act.
not people just barely able to start those cars, nice cars.
And
Lined
if
up for miles.
he's really bold, he'll
Waiting
talk
for a
about the
box of
Equality
food to be
Act.
put
But
in
I'm
the
not sure
trunk.
if he'll go there.
Maybe
But
the
if he
voting rights
does-
legislation. He
I don't
should
know
talk
about
about
you,
that.
but I didn't ever think
Yeah,
I'd
that's
see
true.
that in America. And all of this is through no fault of their own. No fault of their own, these people are in this position. That's why the rescue plan is delivering food and nutrition assistance to millions of Americans facing hunger. And hunger's down sharply already. We're also providing rental assistance. You all know this, but the American people, I want to make sure they understand. Keeping people from being evicted from their homes. Providing loans to small businesses that reopen and keep their employees on the job. During these 100 days, an additional 800,000 Americans enrolled in the Affordable Care Act when I established a special sign-up period to do that. 800,000 in that period. We're making one of the largest one-time ever investments, ever, in improving health care for veterans. Critical investments to address the opioid crisis. And maybe most importantly, thanks to the American Rescue Plan, we're on track to cut child poverty in America in half.
That's a really smart thing to hit on because that's
Yeah.
a really good talking point. That's brilliant. It's anytime I hear that, it's like, damn, that sounds amazing.
That's a good thing.
It is a
Like,
good
we
thing.
can't-
The question is whether we can sustain that. That's the question, whether we can follow it up and sustain
And
it.
in the process, while this was all going on,
Gotta
the
make the cuts
economy
permanent.
created more than 1,300,000 new jobs in 100 days. More jobs in the first,
You know, the numbers, they matter. to
more
people.
jobs in the first 100 days than any president on record. The International Monetary Fund is now estimating our economy will grow at a rate of more than 6% this year. That will be the fastest pace of economic growth in this country in nearly 4 decades. America's moving forward.
I wonder what
But
that's
we
compared
can't
to,
stop
though.
now.
It said the last decade?
We're in competition with China and other countries
That makes
to
sense
win the
in a
21st
decade.
century. We're at a great inflection point in history. We have to do more than just build back better. We have to build back better. We have to compete more strenuously than we have. Throughout our history, if you think about it, public investment in infrastructure has literally transformed America. Our attitudes as well as our opportunities.
It's true.
The Transcontinental Railroad, the interstate highways, united 2 oceans and brought a totally new age of progress to the United States of America. Universal public schools and college aid opened wide the doors of opportunity. Scientific breakthroughs took us to the moon. Now we're on Mars, discovering vaccines, gave us the internet, and so much more.
The way he said that, it's like we discovered the vaccine
These
on
are
Mars.
investments we made together as one country, and investments that only the government was in a position to make. Time and again, they propel us into the future. That's why I proposed the American Jobs Plan,
Here it is.
a once-in-a-generation investment in America itself. This is the largest jobs plan since World War II.
It echoes of FDR, which
Creates
I love.
jobs
Yeah.
to upgrade our transportation.
FDR, Great Society, LBJ.
Jobs, modernizing our roads, bridges, highways. Jobs building ports and airports, rail corridors, transit lines. It's clean water. And today, up to 10 million homes in America and more than 400,000 schools and child care centers have pipes with lead in them, including drinking water. A clear and present danger to our children's health. American Jobs Plan creates jobs replacing 100% of the nation's lead pipes and service lines, so every American
That's a huge
can
deal.
drink clean water.
I actually worked for an entire 6-month period going door to door trying to raise awareness in lead pipes in schools.
And in the process,
early
will
in my
create
political
thousands
career.
and thousands of
It's
good
an issue that
paying
doesn't get a
jobs.
lot of attention, but it's obviously, I don't know if it's going to hit hard
Creates
with people at
jobs
home, but
connecting
it
every
certainly is a big
American with
issue.
high-speed internet.
Yeah, a lot of parents
Including
feel privileged and they
35%
think that it's not my
of the
kids.
rural America
not
that
my
still
town.
doesn't have it. This is going to help our kids and our businesses succeed in the 21st century economy. And I'm asking the Vice President to lead this effort, if she would. Because I know it'll get done.
Oh, and I don't know if you missed that. He's going to try
Creates
to
jobs, building a
too.
modern power grid. Our grids are vulnerable to storms, hacks, catastrophic failures, with tragic results, as we saw in Texas and elsewhere during the winter storms. The American Jobs Plan will create jobs that lay thousands of miles of transmission lines needed to build a resilient and fully clean grid. We can do that.
Oh, I like that stat about $70 billion a year being lost in outages. That's
Yeah,
huge.
these are numbers that people would never know without
American
that little,
Jobs
because he
Plan
can't say that,
will
but
help
he
Yeah,
coming up
he
as a little
can.
Back to the
slide
job.
is smart.
And back to their careers. 2 million women have dropped out of the workforce during this pandemic. 2 million. And too often because they couldn't get the care they needed to care for their child or care for an elderly parent who needs help. 800,000 families are on the Medicare waiting list right now to get home care for their aging parent or loved one with disability. If you think it's not important, check out in your own district, Democrat or Republican, Democrat or Republican voters. Their great concern, almost as much as their children, is taking care of an elderly loved one who can't be left alone. Medicaid contemplated it, but this plan is going to help those families and create jobs for our caregivers with better wages and better benefits, continuing a cycle of growth. For too long, we've failed to use the most important word when it comes to meeting the climate crisis: jobs. Jobs. Jobs.
I love how the Republicans are just like, jobs? Whose jobs?
That feels like that's going to be on a shirt later on his website or something.
For me,
Jobs, jobs, jobs.
when I think climate
Yeah.
change, I think
Climate change
Jobs.
gives us more jobs for our jobs.
American Jobs Plan will put engineers and construction workers to work building more energy efficient buildings and homes. Electrical workers, IBEW
back.
members installing 500,000 charging stations along our highways so we can own the electric car market. Farmers planting cover crops so they can reduce the carbon dioxide in the air and get paid for doing it. Look, think about it. There is simply no reason why the blades for wind turbines can't be built in Pittsburgh instead of Beijing. No
the
reason.
fact. I've been saying that
None.
for years.
No reason. So, folks, there's no reason why American American workers can't lead the world in the production of electric vehicles and batteries. I mean, there is no reason. We have the capacity. We're the brightest, best trained people in the world. The American Jobs Plan is going to create millions of good paying jobs Americans can raise a family on. As my dad would then say, with a little breathing room. And all the investments in the American Job Plan will be guided by one principle: buy American. Buy American.
That rings well with voters.
And
I don't know how true that's going to be.
Yeah. I mean, he only has so much control.
That does not violate any trade agreement. It's been the law since the 30s. Buy American. American tax dollars are going to be used to buy American products made in America to create American jobs. That's the way it's supposed to be, and it will be in this administration.
I'm pretty sure, like, the government always buys American.
Yeah, but it's always a good thing to roll out, though, right? Like, because the question, if he expands, that means he's buying more American. If he expands any plant.
I mean, if America's just buying more in general, I guess.
Yeah. So he can still ring the talking point out.
Yeah.
Now, I know some of you at home are wondering whether these jobs are for you. So many of you, so many of the folks I grew up with, feel left behind, forgotten, in an economy that's so rapidly changing. It's frightening. I want to speak directly to you, because you think about it. That's what people are most worried about. Can I fit in? Independent experts estimate the American Jobs Plan will add millions of jobs and trillions of dollars to economic growth in the years to come. It is a 8-year program. These are good-paying jobs that can't be outsourced. Nearly 90% of the infrastructure jobs created in the American Jobs Plan do not require a college degree. 75% don't require an associate's degree. The American Jobs Plan is a blue-collar blueprint to build America.
Oh, trying to distance himself from the coastal elitist type. Oh my God, this is a really good speech.
Really well written. This is well written.
I'm going to recognize
and he's delivering it well, too.
Something I've always said in this chamber and the other.
The bar has been set pretty low after Trump, though.
True, but that means the impact will only be that much stronger if it's a good speech.
The middle class built the country, and unions built the middle class.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Give
So
that red
that's
meat.
why I'm calling on Congress to pass Protect the Right to Organize Act, the PRO Act, and send it to my desk so we can support the right to
there's the PRO
unionize.
Act. Good.
Yeah.
Connecting unions directly with the PRO Act.
And by the way,
That's important.
while you're thinking about sending
Unions still widely
this,
popular across all political lines.
let's raise the minimum wage to $15.
There we go.
Is he gonna do it? Is he gonna push harder?
Well, the thing is,
No one
he's connecting
working
his
40
name to a
hours
popular
week.
policy leading up to the midterms.
No one working
Therefore,
40
if we
hours should live
do filibuster
below the
reform
poverty
and
line.
win big in the midterms, $50.
We need to ensure greater equity and opportunity for
15.
women. And while we're doing this, let's get the Paycheck Fairness Act to my desk as well. Equal pay. They spent much too long.
Damn.
And if you wonder whether it's too
Sitting
long,
on everything.
look behind me.
Go with the Equality Act next. Equality Act.
Let's
Say
see.
it, please.
And finally, American Jobs Plan will be the biggest increase in non-defense research and development on record.
Oof, that's a very big asterisk.
Yeah.
And some of you know more about this than I do. We'll see more technological change in the next 10 years than we saw in the last 50. That's how rapidly artificial intelligence and so much more is changing. And we're falling behind the competition with the rest of the world. Decades ago, we used to invest 2% of our gross domestic product in America, 2% of our gross domestic product in research and development. Today, Mr. Secretary, that's less than 1%.
That's a
China
big stat.
and other countries are closing in fast. We have to develop and dominate the products and technologies of the future.
That is a
Advanced
big.
batteries,
Oof.
biotechnology.
This is a big thing that's actually important to me, so I'm happy he's
Computer
bringing it up. I didn't expect him
Clean
to,
energy.
because it's not really something that really hits home with
The
voters,
Secretary of Defense
but
can
it
tell
is
you,
something that could like
and
bring
those
the
of you
popularity
who
for it up
work in
slightly.
national security issues know. The Defense Department has an agency called DARPA.
It's hard
The
because like
Defense
Americans
Advanced
feel so
Research
anti-science
Project
now. It's
Agency.
like, oh, they're just wasting money on
The
science.
people who set up before I came here, and that's been a long time ago,
True, 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 true.
to develop breakthroughs that enhance our national security. That's their only job. And it's a semi-separate agency. It's under the Defense Department. It's led to everything from the discovery of the internet to GPS and so much more that's enhanced our security. The National Institute of Health, the NIH, I believe, should create a similar advanced research projects agency for health. And here's what it would do. It would have a singular purpose: to develop breakthroughs to prevent, detect, and treat diseases like Alzheimer's, diabetes, and cancer. I'll still never forget when we passed the cancer proposal in the last year I was vice president. Almost $9 million going to NIH. And if you excuse the point of personal privilege, I'll never forget you standing, Mitch, and saying, "Name it after my deceased son." It meant a lot. But so many of us,
That's a real. Oh my gosh.
sons, daughters, and relatives.
That reacher lost the aisle gives her. Oh, that's
I can
that's
think of
good.
no
That's
more
really
worthy
good. That's
Yeah.
Oh my
know
gosh.
of
He's
Biden
hitting
is a
on every.
master at
that
that.
is more bipartisan. So let's end cancer as we know it. It's within our power.
I mean, like, what's
within our
less
power to
what's
do it.
more? What's less like hated? I mean, like, what's gonna have less opposition than saying like fuck cancer? Like this
Yeah,
is.
screw cancer. Yay. I hate cancer too.
Investments in jobs and infrastructure, like
And then
the ones
connecting
we're
it to
talking
personal
about.
struggle, and then connecting it to
I've often had
bipartisanship, all in the same
bipartisan
point. Oh my gosh.
Vice President Harris and I met regularly in the Oval Office with Democrats and Republicans and discussed the jobs plan. And I applaud a group of Republican senators who just put forward their own proposal. So let's get to work. I wanted to lay out before the Congress my plan before we got into the deep discussions. I'd like to meet with those who have ideas that are different, they think are better. I welcome those ideas. But the rest of the world is not waiting for us. I just want to be clear. From my perspective, doing nothing is not an option.
Because doing nothing
Look,
is like what Republicans do, because anything is better than nothing.
we can't be so busy competing with one another
Subtitles? No, I cannot.
that we forget the
Sorry.
competition that we have with the rest of the world to win the 21st century. Secretary Blinken can tell you, I spent a lot of time with President Xi. Traveled over 17,000 miles with him. Spent, they tell me, over 24 hours in private discussions with him. When he called to congratulate him, we had a 2-hour discussion.
Here we go. Let's hear it.
He's deadly earnest about becoming the most significant, consequential nation in the world. He and others, autocrats, think that democracy can't compete in the 21st century with autocracies, because it takes too long to get consensus.
That is a critique.
That
To
is.
win that competition for the future, in my view,
Let's get into theory.
we also need to make
I
a
know, right?
once-in-a-generation investment in our families and our children. That's why I've introduced the American Families Plan tonight, which addresses 4 of the biggest challenges facing American families.
Don't
in
know how
entire
that's
America.
related to China, but okay.
First is access to good education.
Yeah.
This nation made 12 years of public education universal
Oh
in the
God,
last
it's about to do.
century. It made us the best educated, best prepared nation in the world. It's, I believe, the overwhelming reason that propelled us to where we got in the 20th century. But the world's caught up or catching up. They're not waiting. I would say parenthetically, if we were sitting down, we set a bipartisan committee together and said, okay, we're going to decide what we do in terms of government providing for free education. I wonder whether we'd think, as we did in the 20th century, that 12 years is enough in the 21st century. I doubt it.
Oh.
Say
12
16.
years is no
Say 16.
longer enough today to compete with the rest of the world in the 21st century.
Is he about to...
Say
That's why
16.
my American Families Plan guarantees 4 additional years of public education for every person in America, starting as early as we can. The great universities
That
in this
might have
country
to-
conducted
Oh.
studies of the last 10 years.
Wait, is he talking
It shows that
preschool
adding
or?
2 years of
No.
universal high-quality preschool
Yeah, he
for every
is.
3-year-old and 4-year-old, no matter what background they
Okay,
come
got me there.
Okay.
from, puts them in
Still
a position to
good,
be able
but-
to compete
Still.
That's still
all the way
good.
through
That is a
12
good
years.
policy.
It is. It is.
and increases exponentially.
From
the
him, that's as
prospect
best
of
we can get
graduating
from
and
this
going
type
on
of
beyond
policy.
graduation.
But he said
Research
4.
shows when a
So
young
what's the other
child goes to school, not daycare,
Community college, I'm guessing.
they're far more likely
Yeah,
to
I'd assume
graduate
so.
from high school and go to college or something after high school. When you add 2 years of free community college on top of that, you begin to change the dynamic. We can do that.
It should also be the first 2 years
And
of
we'll
any public
increase Pell
university,
Grants and
too,
invest in
regardless.
historical black colleges and universities, tribal colleges, minority
Oh,
serving
and listen,
institutions.
see more points coming up
The
about how
reason
it's
is-
specifically going to help.
They don't have the
Yeah.
endowments. But their students are just as capable of learning about cybersecurity, just as capable of learning about metallurgy, all the things that are going on that provide those jobs of the future. Jill is a community college professor who teaches today as First Lady. She's long said,
Fun fact, Jill Biden went to my community college class when I was in political science back in
She's long-
2012. Super crazy, right? She came in, did a guest lecture for my political science class, political science 101. I was like, what? She's super
if I've
fun.
heard it once, I've heard it 1,000 times.
Senator Romney seems to
Joe?
be kind of sleeping, doesn't he?
Any country that out-educates us is going to out-compete us. She'll be deeply involved in leading this effort. Thank you, Jill.
That's cool. That's a great
Second
initiative
thing.
for First Lady, for a community college.
The
First Lady.
American Families Plan will provide access to quality,
Yeah, thanks for the
affordable
rating.
child care. We guarantee
What was the point? What about childcare?
I think he might have said universal. I have to
when
hear
I'm
that again.
proposing the
Okay.
legislation, we guarantee that low and middle income families will pay no more than 7% of their income for high quality care for children up to the age of 5. The most
So cap
hard-pressed
7.
working families won't have to spend a dime. Third, the American Families Plan will finally provide up to 12 weeks of paid leave and medical leave, family medical leave.
That is
We're
the
one of
thing
the
that
few
every
industrial
president
countries
declares
in
they're
the
going to
world.
do, but never ends up doing
That's
it. Like
true,
Trump
though.
dropped it immediately once he got elected.
Yeah.
No one should have to choose between a job and a paycheck or taking care of themselves and their loved ones or parent or spouse or child. And fourth, the American Family Plan puts directly into the pockets of millions of Americans. In March, we expanded tax credit for every child in a family, up to $3,000 per child if you're under 6 years of age. Over 6 years of age. And $3,600 for children over 6 years of age. With 2 parents, 2 kids, that's $7,200 in the pockets that are going to help take care of your family. And that will help more than 65 million children and help cut child care poverty in half.
That's pretty pog.
And we can afford it.
That's pretty badass. That's family values
We
right
did that
there.
in the
I always have said that the
the
Democrats
last
need to
piece of
sell themselves as
legislation
the
we
party of
passed.
family values based on the fact that
Let's
they actually
extend
care
that
what happens to you
childcare
once you
tax credit
exit
at
the
least
womb.
through the end of
But I mean, like,
2020.
Democrats have tried, they've just failed.
Yeah.
The American Rescue Plan lowered health care premiums for 9 million Americans who buy their coverage under the Affordable Care Act. I know that's really popular this side of the aisle. But let's make that provision permanent so their premiums don't go back up. In addition to my family's plan, I'm going to work with Congress to address this year other critical priorities for American families. The Affordable Care Act has been a lifeline for millions of Americans, protecting people with pre-existing conditions, protecting women's health, and the pandemic has demonstrated how badly it's needed. Let's lower deductibles for working families on the Affordable Care Act. And let's lower prescription drug costs. We know how to do this.
I mean, that's very broad, though. I mean, he should call for it, but that's very broad. He's not saying by like how much or what policy.
Drugs are in America.
Yeah.
In fact, we pay.
Then again,
the
it is
highest
again being
prescription
thrown
drug
to the American
prices
public. So
of
Yeah.
anywhere in the world, right here in America. Nearly 3 times for the same drug, nearly 3 times what other countries pay. We have to change that, and we can. Let's do what we talked about for all the years I was down here in this body, in Congress. Let's give Medicare the power to save hundreds of billions of dollars by negotiating lower drug prescription prices.
It'd just be easier if they just did a full overhaul instead of the smell stuff.
By the way,
But it's still good if we have negotiated
it won't just
pharmaceuticals.
help people on Medicare. Lower prescription drug costs for everyone. And the money we save, which is billions of dollars, can go to strengthen the Affordable Care Act and expand Medicare coverage benefits without costing taxpayers an additional penny. It's within our power to do it. Let's do it now. We've talked about it long enough, Democrats and Republicans. Let's get it done this year. This is all about a simple premise. Health care should be a right, not a privilege in America.
yeah, but how do you deliver that?
How do you do that?
How do you deliver that? Housing is a right. All these things are rights, but like what do you do to deliver it?
How do we pay for my
Right.
jobs and family plan?
Oh well, then just pivots
There
that
it
away.
is.
I made
There
it
it is.
clear we can do it without increasing the deficits. Let's start with what I will not do. I will not impose
Oh, no,
any
if
tax
Richard Wolff.
increase on people
I
making
cannot.
less than $400,000. But it's time for corporate America and the wealthiest 1% of Americans to just begin to pay their fair share. Just their
You're
fair
gonna do a
share.
tax increase?
Yeah, I believe he said he was specifically going to tax. He was going to pay for this, and I read the documents about it. He's going to pay for this specifically with a corporate
Sometimes
tax
I have
hike.
arguments with my friends in the Democratic Party. I think you should be able to become a billionaire and a millionaire, but pay your fair share. A recent study shows that 55 of the nation's biggest corporations paid 0 federal tax last year. Those 55 corporations made in excess of $40 billion in profit. A lot of companies also evade taxes through tax havens in
55.
Switzerland and Bermuda,
55
Cayman
of 500
Islands.
companies paid 0 in taxes.
and they benefit from tax loopholes and deductions for offshoring jobs and shifting profits overseas. It's not right. We're going to reform corporate taxes so they pay their fair share and help pay for the public investments their businesses will benefit from as well.
I wonder how far
What was
I
that?
wonder how far they're in
We're
for
going
the
to
process.
reward work, not just wealth.
Probably pretty deep.
We
What's that
take the
sound?
top tax bracket,
Somebody's
the
fucking
wealthiest
phone ringer went
1%
off.
of Americans, those making over $400,000 or more, back up to where it was when George W. Bush was president, when he started, 39.6%. That's where it was when George W. was president. We're going to get rid of the loopholes, allow Americans to make more than $1 million a year and pay a lower tax rate on their capital gains than Americans who receive a paycheck. We're only going to affect 0.3% of all Americans by that action. 0.3%. And the IRS is going to crack down on millionaires and billionaires who cheat on their taxes. It's estimated to be billions of dollars by think tanks that are left, right, and center. I'm not looking to punish anybody, but I will not add a tax burden, additional tax burden to the middle class in this country. They're already paying enough. I believe what I propose is fair, fiscally responsible, and it raises revenue to pay for the plans I propose and will create millions of jobs that will grow the economy and enhance our financial standing in the country. When you hear someone say they don't want to raise taxes on the wealthiest 1% or corporate America, ask them whose taxes you want to raise. Instead, whose are going to cut? Look, the big tax cut of 2017. Remember, it was supposed to pay for itself. That was how it was sold.
Broke.
And generate vast economic growth.
It created what, the largest deficit in American history?
Instead, it added $2 trillion to the deficit.
If anything, it proved that we live in
It was
modern
a huge
monetary
windfall for corporate America and those at the very top. Instead of using the tax saving to raise wages and invest in research and development, it poured billions of dollars into the pockets of CEOs. In fact, the pay gap between CEOs and their workers is now among the largest in history. According to one study, CEOs make 320 times what the average worker in their corporation makes. Used to be below 100. The pandemic has only made things worse. 20 million Americans lost their job in the pandemic, working and middle-class Americans. At the same time, roughly 650 billionaires in America saw their net worth increase by more than $1 trillion in the same exact period. Let me say it again. 650 people increased their wealth by more than $1 trillion during this pandemic.
That's how I want him to talk.
And they're now worth more than $4 trillion.
Yeah.
My fellow Americans, trickle down. Trickle down economics has never worked. And it's time to grow the economy from the bottom and the middle out.
I mean, has a president said that before? Did Obama ever say that, like, trickle down economics doesn't work?
You know,
I'm sure they have. I don't know in this specific format, though.
And they agree.
That's fair.
What I'm proposing will help create millions of jobs and generate historic economic growth. These are among the highest values investments we can make as a nation. I've often said our greatest strength is the power of our example, not just the example of our power. In my conversations with world leaders, and I've spoken to over 38, 40 of them now, I've made it known that America's back. And you know what they say? The comment I hear most of all from them is they say, we see America's back, but for how long? But for how long? My fellow Americans, we have to show not just that we're back, but that we're back to stay.
Back for good.
And that we aren't going to go it alone.
But what is back, though? Like,
We're going to do it by leading with
that
our
we
allies.
aren't going to backstab our allies and like leave all these
No
international
one
organizations, stuff like that.
Can deal with
Fair
all
enough.
the crises of our time.
Some countries could be
Terrorism,
like, oh
nuclear
God, back to
proliferation,
like
mass
military,
migration.
like,
Yeah, like we
cybersecurity,
elected another Trump.
climate
They don't
change,
want
as
that.
well as what we're experiencing now, the pandemics. There's no wall high enough to keep any virus out. And our own vaccine supply, as it grows to meet our needs, and we're meeting them, will become an arsenal for vaccines for other countries, just as America is an arsenal for democracy for the world, and in consequence influence the world. But every American will have access before that occurs. Every American will have access to be fully covered by COVID-19 from the vaccines we have. Look, the climate crisis is not our fight alone, it's a global fight. The United States accounts, as all of you know, less than 15% of carbon emissions. The rest of the world accounts for 85%.
I think that number's
That's
sus.
why I kept my commitment to rejoin the Paris Accord, because if we do everything perfectly, it's not going to only matter. I kept my commitment to convene a climate summit right here in America with all the major economies of the world: China, Russia, India, European Union. And I said I'd do it in my first 100 days.
Instead of
I wanna
saying
be
like
very
percentage of
blunt
climate
about it.
change as a whole.
I had
Yeah, you're right.
my
Because it makes
attempt
it
was
seem
to
like
make sure
America isn't the most
that the world could
one of the
see there
largest
was a
contributors
consensus
to climate change per
that we
person.
are at an inflection point in history. The consensus is if we act to save the planet, we can create millions of jobs and economic growth and opportunity and raise the standard of living of almost everyone around the world. If you watched any of it and you were all busy, I'm sure you didn't have much time. That's what virtually every nation said, even the ones that aren't doing their fair share. The investments I propose tonight also advance the foreign policy,
Oh, here we
in
go.
my view, that benefits the middle class.
All right,
That
let's
means
see it.
making sure every nation plays by the same rules in the global economy, including China.
Ooh, he's going with trade.
In my discussion with President Xi, I told him, we welcome the competition.
Good.
We're not looking for conflict. But I made absolutely clear that we will defend America's interest across the board. America will stand up to unfair trade practices that undercut American workers and American industries, like subsidies from state to state-owned operations and enterprises, and the theft of American technology and intellectual property. I also told President Xi that we'll maintain a strong military presence in the Indo-Pacific, just as we do with NATO and Europe, not to start a conflict, but to prevent one.
Sure. Rattle your saber. Rattle it.
I told them what I've said to many world leaders, that America will not back away from our commitments, our commitment to human rights and fundamental freedoms, and to our alliances. And I pointed out to him, no responsible American president could remain silent when basic human rights are being so blatantly violated. An American president has to represent the essence of what our country stands for. America is an idea, the most unique idea in history. We are created, all of us, equal. It's who we are. And we cannot walk away from that principle and, in fact, say we're dealing with the American idea. With regard to Russia, I know it concerns some of you, but I made very clear to Putin that we're not going to seek escalation.
Can't wait for the people to tweet about that as the only part of the speech for the next fucking 5 days.
To be true.
No kidding.
So I responded directly and proportionally to Russia's interference in our elections and the cyber attacks on our government and our business. They did both of these things, and I told them we would respond, and we have. But we can also cooperate when it's our mutual interest. We did it when we extended the New START Treaty on nuclear arms, and we're working to do it on climate change. But he understands we will respond. On Iran and North Korea, nuclear programs that present serious threats to American security and the security of the world. We're going to be working closely with our allies to address the threats posed by both of these countries through diplomacy as well as stern deterrence. And American leadership means ending the forever war in Afghanistan.
Here it is. Here it is, Afghanistan.
Yep.
We have.
He had to talk about that.
Who's gonna clap and who isn't? Ooh, Mitch McConnell isn't clapping.
Oh, God. The Warhawks are strong.
Without hyperbole, the greatest fighting force in the history of the world. I'm the first president in 40 years and knows what it means to have a son serving in a war zone. Today, we have service members serving in the same war zone as their parents did. We have service members in Afghanistan who are not yet born on 9/11. The war in Afghanistan, as we remember the debates here, were never meant to be multi-generational undertakings of nation building. We went to Afghanistan to get the terrorists who attacked us on 9/11. And we said we would follow Osama bin Laden to the gates of hell to do it. If you've been in the upper Konar Valley, you've kind of seen the gates of hell. And we delivered justice to bin Laden.
Was I born past 9/11? Nope, I was born a little bit before 9/11.
In Afghanistan. And after 20 years
We'll
of
talk about that later.
valor, and sacrifice, it's time to bring those troops home. Look,
How's the withdrawal going to work? Ted's clapping. Some people aren't. It's
even
divided
as
on the
we will
right.
maintain over the
Was that
horizon
Lindsey Graham
capacity
on the
to
right?
suppress
Yeah, Lindsey
future
Graham was
threats
not
to the
clapping.
homeland.
Yeah.
Make no mistake.
The Republican
In 20
leadership is
years,
pretty clearly in support of
terrorism
staying.
has metastasized.
Yeah.
The threat has evolved way beyond Afghanistan. Those of you in the intelligence committees, the foreign relations committee, defense committees, you know well, we have to remain vigilant against the threats to the United States wherever they come from. Al-Qaeda and ISIS are in Yemen, Syria, Somalia,
Thanks for the Prime Gaming polls.
other places in
Appreciate
Africa,
that.
in the Middle East, and beyond. And we won't
Yep,
ignore
this
what
was
our
just like his
intelligence
speech he
agencies
made about this originally.
determined to be the most lethal terrorist
Yeah.
threat to the homeland today. White supremacy is terrorism. We're not going to ignore that either. My fellow Americans, look, we have to come together to heal the soul of this nation. It was nearly a year ago before her father's funeral when I spoke with Gianna Floyd, George Floyd's young daughter. She's a little tyke, so I was kneeling down to talk to her.
When the Republicans get so worried about women's
eye.
rights in the Middle East, we'll talk about that
She
later.
looked at me, she said, "My daddy changed the world." Well, after the conviction of George Floyd's murderer, we
I
can
don't
see
think that
how
story
right
is
she
connecting
was
with
if-
people the way he thinks it does.
if
I
we
don't
have
think
the
so
courage to
either.
I
act.
think you should really stop repeating it.
We've all seen the need.
I mean, it's not doing
and justice on the
damage,
neck
but-
of Black Americans.
Yeah.
I think it's making the connection.
Now's our opportunity to make some real progress. The vast majority of men and women wearing a uniform and a badge serve our communities, and they serve them honorably. I know them. I know they want.
You know, I don't like when Biden talks about, like, human rights and stuff, but, like, at the end of the day, like, we don't even have the Equality Act. Like,
I know
we're not the shining example that he
we
thinks
want to
we
help
are.
meet this moment as well.
We'll get to that later, I
Fellow
think.
Americans,
Yeah, for
we
sure.
have to come together to rebuild trust between law enforcement and the people they serve, to root
He's been
out
going on
systemic
for
racism in our criminal justice
almost an
system,
hour.
and to enact police reform in George
Which is a
Floyd's
long
name
speech.
that
Yeah.
passed the
Good
House
speech, though.
already. I know Republicans have their own ideas and are engaged in a very productive discussions with Democrats in the Senate. We need to work together to find a consensus. But let's get it done next month, by the first anniversary of George Floyd's death. The country supports this reform, and Congress should act. We have a giant opportunity to bend the arc of the moral universe toward justice, real justice. And with the plans outlined tonight, we have a real chance to root out systemic racism that plagues America and American lives in other ways.
Say something like
chance to live
white
in real
supremacy is
equity.
like terrorist or something.
Good jobs,
I don't
good
know.
schools, affordable
Yeah, I
housing.
know, right?
Clean air, clean water, being able to
Doubt he will,
generate
though.
wealth and pass it down
I doubt it.
through generations because you have an access to purchase a house.
It's such a low-hanging
Real
fruit, though.
opportunities in the lives of more Americans, Black, white, Latino, Asian Americans, Native Americans.
You already
Look,
did it?
I also want to thank the United States Senate
They missed
Did he?
that?
for voting
Well, then, nope.
94-1 to pass COVID-19 hate crimes.
You planted a
Act to
seed in my
protect
mind.
Asian American and Pacific Islanders.
Okay, all right.
You acted decisively. You can see on television.
I want him to talk about the
vicious
Voting Rights Act. I
hate
need him to talk about the
crimes
Equality Act. Those are the
we've
two
seen
things I
over the
want him to talk
past
about.
year- this past
Yeah.
year and for too long. I urge the House to do the same and send that legislation to my desk, which I will gladly, anxiously sign.
What
I
bill was
also
that?
hope Congress will
If
get
I
to my
missed it.
desk the Equality Act. to
There it
protect
is.
There it is.
LGBTQ Americans.
There we go.
For all
that's a
transgender
big
Americans
deal.
watching at home, especially the young people, you're so brave. I want you to know your president has your back.
Oh, none of the Republicans barely
Another
clapped.
thing.
Jesus.
Let's authorize the Violence Against Women Act, which has been
Yes.
law for 27 years.
Yes.
That's one thing he's been pretty consistent on.
Yeah. We actually said
27 years
transgender
ago, I wrote
Americans.
it.
I'm super stoked about that.
It'll close the act that has to be authorized now. Will close the boyfriend loophole to keep guns out of the hands of abusers. The court order said this is an abuser. You can't own a gun.
Oof, that's
to
something that's
close
going to be
that
very
loophole.
hard for the Republicans to
Exists.
defend.
Yeah.
You know, it's estimated
I have a family
that
member who
50 women
would have
are
benefited
shot
from
and
that
killed
law.
by an intimate partner every month in America.
Oh,
right.
I thought you were about to say every year. Damn.
Let's pass it and save some lives.
That's 600 women every year.
Yeah. That we know of,
And
right?
Yeah.
I need not tell anyone this, but gun violence is
Of course, also
becoming
doesn't
epidemic
include
in
male victims as well.
And a
Friday
lot
at
of
the
it
White House,
doesn't
we're still
include
flying at
indigenous
half
people
mast.
either, because a lot of times they're not
For the 8
counted.
victims
True.
of the mass shooting in Georgia,
It's just a disappearance.
and 10 more
Yes.
lives were taken in the mass shooting in Colorado. And in the week in between those two events, 250 other Americans were
Okay,
shot.
now the voting rights. Just voting rights. If he hits on voting
Let's see if
rights,
he hits it. Let's see if he hits it.
because that's important for the rest
I
for him
know
to get
how
any
we
of this
make
through.
Progress on this issue.
Yeah.
In the 90s, we passed universal background checks, a ban on assault weapons and high-capacity
I wasn't expecting him to go
magazines
with the
that
gun
hold
control stuff.
100
I mean, he
rounds
needs to go with the gun control
that can be
stuff,
fired off in
but
seconds.
we'll see what happens.
We beat the NRA. Mass shootings and gun violence declined. Check out the report over 10 years.
It declined
In the
because
early
of COVID. though.
2000s, the law expired. We've seen daily bloodshed since. I'm not saying if the law continued, we wouldn't see bloodshed. More than 2 weeks ago in the Rose Garden, surrounded by some of the bravest people I know, the survivors and families who lost loved ones to gun violence, I laid out several of the Department of Justice actions that are being taken to impact on this epidemic. One of them is banning so-called ghost guns. These are homemade guns built from a kit that includes directions how to finish the firearm. The parts have no serial numbers, so they show up at crime scenes and they can't be traced.
Jake Hanrahan's not going to be happy about that
Buyers of
one.
these
Stoic
ghost
Viper.
gun kits aren't required to pass any background check. Anyone, from a criminal or terrorist, could buy this kit and within 30 minutes have a weapon that's lethal, but no more.
Your video feed's
And I'll do
been
everything in
Yeah,
my
I know.
power
I'm
to
trying to
protect
see if
the
I can
American
fix it.
people from this epidemic
Oh,
of gun
okay.
violence, but it's time for Congress to act as well. Look, I don't want to become confrontational, but we need more Senate Republicans to join the overwhelming majority of Democratic colleagues and close the loopholes required in background check purchases of guns. We need a
Dope.
ban on assault
Call 'em
weapons
out
and
directly.
high-capacity magazines.
There we go.
And don't tell me it can't be done. We did it before, and it
You should have
worked.
done this on a lot of other issues, like $15 minimum
Talk to
wage,
most
though.
responsible
Because I feel
gun
like the
owners
gun
and
issue
hunters.
is a very, very, like,
They'll tell you there's
cultural
no
issue as well, with a
justification
$15
for having
minimum
100
wage is very
rounds
clearly very
in a
popular.
weapon.
Exactly, and there's so many single issue voters on just
What do you
guns
think, deer
alone.
wear
But
Yeah.
pistol or vests?
This might be something that I think he should have hit. This part about needing Republicans to
tell
do
you
it because they won't do it
that there are too
should have
many
hit somewhere
people
else.
today who are able to buy a gun, but shouldn't be able to buy a gun.
I mean, we're having a mass
These
shooting every
kinds of
day.
reasonable reforms have overwhelming support from the American people, including many gun owners. The country supports reform, and Congress should act. This shouldn't be
Yeah, but I don't think any of the
Resolution.
legislation he's proposing right now would
and
would
no
lower
amendment
that.
to the Constitution
Yeah, I
is
agree.
absolute. You can't yell fire in a crowded theater.
Most of the mass shootings
From
have
the
been with
very beginning,
pistols, handguns.
There
Nothing
are certain
he's
guns,
talking about right now
weapons
has to do with that.
that could not be owned by Americans. Certain people could not own those weapons ever. We're not changing the Constitution. We're being reasonable. I think this is not a Democrat or Republican issue. I think it's an American issue. And here's what else we can do. Immigration has always been essential to America.
You brought it up,
Let's
okay.
end our exhausting war over immigration.
That's
For more than
interesting.
30
Wasn't
years, politicians have talked
Didn't
about
expect immigration.
reform,
Okay.
and we've done nothing about it. It's time to fix it.
How?
On day one of my presidency, I kept my commitment and sent a comprehensive immigration bill to the United States Congress. If you believe we need to secure the border, pass it because it has a lot of money for high-tech border security. If you believe in a pathway to citizenship,
The thing is,
pass
it's
it.
not gonna pass.
Over 11 million undocumented
So him
folks,
putting
the
like
vast
stuff in there to make it look
majority here,
bipartisan, of course, can hurt the
overstaying visas.
Republicans.
Pass it.
Yeah.
We can actually, if you actually want to solve a problem, I've sent a bill to take a close look at it. We also have to get at the root problem of why people are fleeing, particularly to our southern border from Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador. The violence, the corruption, the gangs, the political instability, hunger, hurricanes, earthquakes, natural disasters. When I was president, when I was vice president, the president asked me to focus on providing help needed to address the root causes of migration. And it helped keep people
Okay, this is a good
in their
point to
own
hit on.
countries
I
instead
really
of
like
being
that.
forced to leave.
Talking about a climate
Plan was
crisis.
working, but the last administration decided
That's something he hasn't
it
hit
was
on
not
yet.
worth it.
Climate change.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm restoring the
We did?
program.
Okay,
and
then
asked
I
Vice
forgot about
President
it.
Harris to lead our diplomatic effort to take care of this.
So then I'm just waiting on voting
I
rights
have
then.
absolute confidence she'll get the job done. Now look, if you don't like my plan, let's at least pass what we all agree on. Congress needs to pass legislation this year to finally secure protection for dreamers. The young people have only known America as their home.
Ooh, who's not clapping?
Permanent protection for
Mitch McConnell.
immigrants who are here on temporary protective status who came from countries beset by man-made and natural-made violence and disaster, as well as a pathway to citizenship for foreign workers who put food on our tables. Look, immigrants have done so much for America during this pandemic and throughout our history. The country supports immigration reform. We should act. Let's argue over it. Let's debate it. But let's act. And if we truly want to restore,
I wish he had
soul
more
of America,
actually
we need to
direct
protect
policy
the sacred
statements
right
on
to vote.
immigration of stuff he wants to do.
Yeah,
Most people-
It seems like it's like a throwaway knockdown. Because I really don't think he has that level of care that he should.
more people voted in the last presidential election.
Here we
than any
go.
time in
Voting
American
rights?
history.
Oh,
In the middle of
wow.
the worst pandemic ever. It should be celebrated. Instead,
Yeah.
it's being attacked. Congress should pass H.R. 1 and the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. and
There it
send
is.
to my desk.
Fucking my bingo card is finished.
The country supports it.
Bingo card is finished.
Congress should act now. Look, in conclusion, as we gather here tonight, the image of a violent mob assaulting this
Perfect
Capitol,
game. It's not a
desecrating our
perfect game.
democracy,
Again, I think he
remain vivid
should
in
have
all
called
our
for
minds.
bipartisanship or something besides
Lives were
guns.
put at risk, many of
I
your
think he
lives.
slipped up his speech tiny
Lives
bit a
were
few
lost.
times.
Extraordinary courage
And he
was
should have been
summoned.
more specific on immigration.
The insurrection was an existential crisis, a
And bolder.
test
Oh, you're talking about the
of whether our
insurrection.
democracy could
Oh,
survive,
here we go.
and it did. But the struggle is far from over. The question of whether our democracy will long endure is both ancient and urgent. As old as our republic, still vital today. Can our democracy deliver on its promise that all of us, created equal in the image of God, had a chance to lead lives of dignity, respect, and possibility? Can our democracy deliver the most to the
I hate
pressing
Biden, but he hit it
needs
this
of
out of
our
the park.
people?
Yeah, I mean,
Can our democracy
this
overcome
is
the
probably
lies,
the best
anger,
speech
hate,
he's
and
made
fears
I've seen.
that have pulled us apart?
Agreed. I'm same right
America's
there with you.
adversaries, the
Even as
autocrats
his time as
of the
vice
world,
president.
are betting we can't.
So far, I
And
give it like an
promise
8
you
out of
they're
10
betting we
so far.
can't.
Yeah, I've actually
They
seen
believe we're
Biden's
too full of
speech
anger and
on unit
division
when
and
I was with
rage.
Ronald Reagan when he was
They
vice
look at the
president.
images of the mob that assaulted the Capitol as proof that the sun is setting on American democracy. But they're wrong. You know it, I know it. But we have to prove them wrong. We have to prove democracy still works, that our government still works, and we can deliver for our people. In our first 100 days
kind of
together,
global
we've
battle
acted
of
to restore
systems.
people's faith in democracy delivered.
Has occurred.
We're vaccinating
You're
the
a
nation.
breath of fresh air
We're
in
creating
the
hundreds
online
of thousands
political
of new
sphere of
jobs.
man.
We're delivering
Seeing
real
your
results
stuff
to
has
people. They can
inspired
see
me
it,
to
feel
finally
it in their own
work on
lives.
making creative content
Opening
of
doors
my
of
own.
opportunity, guaranteeing
Keep up the great
more
work.
fairness and justice. That's
Well,
the
Runner, I
essence of
really
America.
appreciate the $5,
That's democracy in
and
action.
I'm happy that I can be that breath of
Our
fresh air, and I
Constitution
really hope
opens with
your
the words
creative
as
endeavors
trite
go
as it
off well.
sounds.
Thank you very
We
much.
the people. Well, it's time to remember that we the people are the government. You and I. Not some force in a distant capital. Not some powerful force that we have no control over. It's us. It's we the people. In another era, when our democracy was tested, Franklin Roosevelt reminded us, in America, we do our part. We all do our part. That's all I'm asking. That we do our part, all of us. That if we do that, we will meet the center challenge of the age by proving that democracy is durable and strong. Autocrats will not win the future. We will. America will. And the future belongs to America. As I stand here tonight before you in a new and vital hour of life and democracy of our nation, and I can say with absolute confidence, I have never been more confident or optimistic about America. Not because I'm president, because of what's happening with the American people. We've stared into the abyss of insurrection and autocracy, pandemic and pain, and we, the people, did not flinch. At the very moment our adversaries were certain we'd pull apart and fail, we came together, we united. With light and hope, we summoned a new strength, new resolve to position us to win the competition of the 21st century. On our way to a union more perfect, more prosperous, and more just, as one people, one nation, and one America. Folks, as I told every world leader I've ever met with over the years, it's never, ever, ever been a good bet to bet against America, and it still isn't. We're the United States of America. There is not a single thing, nothing beyond our capacity. We can do whatever we set our minds to if we do it together. So let's begin to get together. God bless you all, and may God protect our troops.
Okay.
Thank you for your patience.
Okay.
So no new policies, but basically this was I didn't hear this one thing about pre-K before this, so that might be new. I don't think it is though. This is probably just standard Democrat policy. But
Right.
This was a really good speech. He hit on basically every single thing I would want him to hit on. This was like a lot of energy from Joe Biden. I mean, he wasn't like yelling, but really good. Very few slip-ups, only one that I really saw. I would say, of course, his weakest points for me was immigration, probably healthcare, and I would say him try to use the gun control as a place to call out the Republicans for not uniting on and calling it the American issue when he could have done 15 or a lot of other issues that are a lot more popular and would have been more prudent to call them out on. I think that was another mistake. But besides that, I got like no more mistakes that I could call out. Afghanistan, no, I think the Afghanistan thing is going to play very well with voters. I don't have any criticism of how he said
Yeah,
that.
I think the idea of like dealing with root causes, I would like to know more about what root causes he's talking about, because
He also said trans rights. True.
Yeah, he did say trans rights, which is
And
a big
with
deal.
legislation, not just
Yes.
trans rights. It wasn't just performative. It was like, and here's the legislation with it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Yeah.
Good speech.
All right.